man, if only Sega had a console after the Sega Saturn with all the games I like.
Are you tired of those old, boring games on the Saturn? That's what I thought. You do realize the Dreamcast is out now, right?
Well, no, I still haven't played the Dreamcast yet.
Wrong answer. Check it.
Where am I? Oh, I'm in the Dreamcast. Well, since I'm here, I guess I better talk about a few games. The Sega Dreamcast is Sega's final console, and it was released in 1999, or 1998 if you're Japanese, and I can safely say it's one of the few consoles with all the games I could ever want. But it came with one fatal flaw, and that thing being, it didn't sell well. Despite being one of Sega's best consoles ever, it had a big reason why it didn't sell well, and it's, well, this thing. That's right, the PS2. The PS2 kinda killed the Sega Dreamcast, with good reason. It's one of my other favorite consoles of all time, and has all the same games, and a few other ones that the Dreamcast just doesn't have. Not to say that the Dreamcast doesn't already have some amazing games. Now, instead of dwelling on the fact that the Dreamcast was an utter failure, how about I show you what this real game system can do, with a few games on it. Up first is a beat-em-up known as Dynamite Cops. This game is, well, a sequel, if you can believe it or not, to Die Hard the arcade game. And you see, back when Die Hard the arcade game was made, Sega wanted to release in Japan, so they changed the title of it to Dynamite Detective and then released it. Which was a pretty bold move at the time, taking a licensed game and changing it to be a non-licensed game just to play it in Japan. But later, they eventually made Dynamite Cops, one of the most crazy and wild games I've ever played. In this game, you get 3 characters to choose from: Bruno Dillinger, Gene Ivey, and Eddie Brown. For me, I always pick Eddie Brown. I mean, look at him, he's got cool sunglasses. I wish I had cool sunglasses. Can I get cool sunglasses? Give me 1 second. No, these sunglasses don't look cool on me. Anyways, the game itself has your standard punch and kick controls, and each one lets you do combos if you mash them enough. The other ways of combat are through the weapons. Throughout the game, you'll find these little weapons on the ground, whether it's something like a baguette or a gun, like a laser gun. And each of these guns and weapons are pretty useful. And there's even one very special one. The missile. Wait, why do I have a missile? Oh my god! Did I just nuke those people? Yeah, that's right. In this game, the cops do not care about the casualties or the consequences of what they'll do. They'll do their job by any means necessary. I mean, just look at this. But I think that's enough of the violence from this game. How about we go over some of the essentials of the Dreamcast real quick? Sonic Adventure was a game originally made for the Dreamcast. Compared to its more popular GameCube counterpart, this one looks a lot nicer and a little bit better. I mean, the graphics and lighting are just nicer because of special features of the Dreamcast. Other than that, it's the same Sonic Adventure you come to know and love with the multiple playable characters. And of course, for me, playing through the game, I usually only play as Tails, because he's one of my favorite Sonic characters, and his stages are really easy. All they are is just race Sonic to the finish, and pray his rubber banding doesn't make you lose, which can be really fun sometimes. But if Sonic isn't your thing and RPGs are, you might want to try Skies of Arcadia. Skies of Arcadia is an RPG where you play as a group of sky pirates on a quest to find some legendary artifacts. The game itself is a fun and standard JRPG, with ship battles, and battles that aren't ship battles, you know, your standard battles. But I would like to talk about this game a little bit more, but that would require spoiling a lot of the game, so we'll move on very quickly from this one. And finally, from the essential group of Dreamcast games, we got one of my favorite games of all time, Jet Set Radio.
Radio!
Wait a minute, that can't be right. I said Jet Set Radio. Well, as it seems, Jet Set Radio doesn't exist, so we'll just move on to some fighting games. Techromancer is a fighting game that feels like it was made specifically for me, because it's a mecha-themed fighting game. And for those who don't know, I'm a mecha-themed VTuber. So of course a fighting game with bootleg versions of existing mechs would appeal to me. The game itself is your average 3D fighter of the time, with very simple inputs for your moves. Things like your super and stuff are simple moves such as back, forward, and both buttons, which makes getting into this game a lot easier than something like, per se, Guilty Gear XX, which was also out at the time. All the game's characters are riffs on already existing mecha series and mecha characters, such as G Kaiser being a riff on Mazin Kaiser, which is a robot I really like a lot, so of course, I like G Kaiser as well. He even comes with a lot of the same moves, such as the chest blast and the rocket punches. But if 3D fighters like this bore you and aren't your thing, and you're more of a Smash player, do I got the game for you. And that game is Power Stone 2, a game made by Capcom that they refuse to make more games of because they're lame. Now Power Stone 2 is mainly defined by its really unique mechanics, known as its gem system and its stages. The stages will change and transition as you fight on them into these big chaotic adventures that make them super fun to play. And the gem system are these little items that everyone starts with one of, and you can knock them out of your opponents. Getting 3 of the gems allows you to enter a super state that makes you super overpowered. It's really fun, but despite all that, Capcom sadly hasn't given this game a chance, just like Darkstalkers. And speaking of Darkstalkers, how about we talk about some more traditional 2D fighters? First one up on this list is the very infamous but very fun Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the Dreamcast is considered the best version of the game, and it has all the classics you'd expect, such as characters like Cyclops, Doctor Doom, and Spider-Man, with one of my favorites being Cyclops. Sadly, he's not playable in the sequels, so this game's always going to have a special place in my heart because of him being playable in this one. The game itself is Marvel vs. Capcom 2, a really janky but greatly fun competitive experience if you like getting hit with infinites. But this game can even be enjoyed on a casual level because of its great roster and characters like Amingo. And if you don't like Amingo, are you even living? But if you want something a little bit more sound and probably a little less jank, then I got the game for you. One of the greatest fighting games of all time, in my opinion, of course. And that game is, that's right, Capcom vs. SNK 2, one of the best fighting games in my opinion. The game itself has an amazing roster, iconic stages, and an amazing soundtrack, with some solid controls. The big thing that defines this fighting game from the others is the roster and its systems. This game is a big crossover between Capcom's big fighters and SNK's big fighters at the time, with all the classics you'd expect, such as Ryu, Terry Bogard, Kyo, and even some characters like the Darkstalkers characters like Morgan. And even with the big roster like that, this game has an insanely in-depth system, known as the Groove System, which each groove will let you play the game in a different way. All of them are named after the two companies being Capcom and SNK, with the C Groove, A Groove, P Groove, and the SNK Grooves. Each one is a playstyle from a different game from those companies. So if you pick something like the P Groove, you'll end up getting things like parries and stuff. While picking the C Groove gives you a 3-meter super bar. No matter which one you pick, they're all wildly fun, and the game itself is worth picking up. Unless you're one of those boring modern fighting game players who hates older fighting games. Then probably stick to something more like Street Fighter 6. Okay, I talked about the games. Can I go home now? Oh, guess it was all a dream. Cast.